So welcome back again. This little video is about osmosis and plant transport, and in this part we're going to be looking at stomata and transpiration. Now the first section we're going to look at is the structure of a leaf, because it's really important for this topic. So this diagram just shows a leaf section which we've looked at before and how you actually get it. So it's as if this leaf here has been sliced in a cross section and we're looking at one edge of it. Now pause the video here and see if you can remember the names of these parts. If you can remember the name of these parts of the leaf, then you can probably skip on through the video, but if not, it's really important that you watch and you understand what each part of this leaf does. So pause it here and see if you can label these parts. So this is the name of each part of the leaf. Now as I say, if you got most of those right and you can remember what each part does, then that's fine, skip on. If not, watch the next 6 or 7 minutes, which is going to explain what each part of these does. Now, let's start at the top layer and work down. So the first layer is the waxy cuticle. Now, that's just this layer up at the top. The important things about it is that it's transparent and it prevents water loss. And it is just this layer up here. Now, it's important that it prevents water loss, because if you think about it, light's going to be shining down on the plant and that's going to get quite hot, and water normally evaporates and goes upwards. So we want to try and reduce the amount of water that actually evaporates out of the leaf, or the leaf would dry out and overall that would eventually kill the plant. So the waxy cuticle is transparent to allow light through and it prevents water loss. Its main job that we need to talk about is preventing water loss. The next layer down is this layer, and this is the upper epidermis. And the point of this layer is it protects the upper surface of the leaf. In this layer, there's not really much happening. It's pretty much just a layer of cells which help protect the uppermost surface of the leaf. So there's no chloroplasts or anything, just plain old boring plant cells. The next layer down here is this layer. And this layer has an extremely important job to do in the leaf. This layer is the palisade mesophyll, and its main job is to carry out photosynthesis. Now later on in this video we're going to look at how it's adapted for photosynthesis. So moving on to the next little layer then. The next layer that we come to is this layer. This layer contains loosely packed cells, and this is this spongy mesophyll layer. And its main job is gas exchange. And later on, we'll talk about how it's adapted for gas exchange. Moving on, the next layer is this, which is the lower epidermis. And like the upper epidermis, it just protects the leaf. But it also has two other little structures in it. It has these little cells here, which are known as guard cells. The guard cells are found either side of a little pore, which allows gases to move in and out of the leaf, and that is called a stoma. Now, you'll have heard of these, but mainly in their plural form. So stoma is singular, stomata is the plural form, and these are usually found on the lower surface of a leaf. The next thing we come to is this area of cells, and this is known as the phloem, and that transports sugars, not just through the leaf but the entire plant. This section here with the hexagonal looking cells is the xylem, and it is there to transport water and ions through the plant. So this is the main structures found in a leaf, with a very, very brief explanation of their job. If we just pick out a few more things which we might find and we might talk about, we've got these areas here, which are air spaces, and they, as you'll see here, are found in the spongy mesophyll. They allowed gases to circulate through the leaf. As well as that, if we look at this cell here, which is in the palisade mesophyll, we can see things that you'd find in a normal plant cell. You can see the vacuole, the chloroplasts, the nucleus, and the cell wall. Now, for a leaf or a cell to be able to photosynthesize, what has to happen is light has to shine down through the waxy cuticle, through the epidermis, through the cell wall, and into a chloroplast of a plant cell. Because remember, the job of a chloroplast is that it contains chlorophyll, which traps light. So photosynthesis happens in the chloroplast. Now, slightly different diagram, but it still has all the same features and all the same layers. So, just going through it really quickly, the waxy cuticle prevents water loss and is transparent. The xylem carries water and the phloem carries sugar. The stomata allow gases to diffuse in and out of the leaf. Now, what I said was that we were going to talk about how different layers were adapted. So, very briefly, the palisade mesophyll is adapted for photosynthesis. And it's adapted for photosynthesis because it has lots of chloroplasts. The cells are very tightly packed and squashed together, and they're found near the upper surface of the leaf, where they can get the most light. The spongy mesophyll is adapted for gas exchange because it has loosely packed cells, which means that a large surface area of each cell is exposed for gas exchange, and they also have moist surfaces, which means that the gases can dissolve. And finally then, the epidermis found at the upper and lower surfaces of the leaf are there to protect the leaf. This section just shows us a microscope image of a leaf which has been cut. So this is a real life leaf we're looking at. Now, as you can see here, it's extremely difficult to even see the waxy cuticle because it's so thin, but it has such an important job to do. It prevents water loss, so the leaf doesn't dry out and die. We then have the upper epidermis, which protects the leaf, the palisade mesophyll, which is this layer, spongy mesophyll, which is here, the lower epidermis, which is this area, the stomata, which are the little pores, and the guard cells at either side. So there's all our little guard cells. We have a little vein, which will contain some xylem and phloem, and then we've got the little air spaces, which are found in the spongy mesophyll, which allow gases to circulate in the leaf. Now, if I were you, I would pause it here, see if you can label parts 1 to 9 on this diagram. So just make a list, numbers 1 to 9, see if you can remember what each part is called. And even better, see if you can write one sentence about what each part does. And if you can't, go back and rewatch it and then attempt it again. And this bit just shows you how stomata actually open and close. So this one is a closed stomata, and these things here are the guard cells. So there we have a guard cell, and this one is an open stomata, or an open stoma. This bit just shows them opening and closing. Now, one of the parts of this is understanding where you find stomata. You'll have noticed that you only see them on the lower surface of the leaf, so within the lower epidermis. Now, they're found there so that they don't get blocked easily, and because if they're on the lower surface of the leaf, they allow gases to enter and leave, but they don't allow water to leave as easily, so they help prevent water loss by being at the bottom. They will be open during the day when they can photosynthesize, or when the plant can photosynthesize, and they will close during the night or to prevent water loss. So if it's very, very hot weather and the plant's losing a lot of water, they can close so that not much water escapes. So now that we remembered all the different parts of a leaf, we need to remember, or we need to then look at the next little part, which is transpiration. So transpiration is the evaporation of water from mesophyll cells followed by diffusion through the air spaces and stomata. So transpiration is the evaporation of water which is in these cells. It evaporates from those cells and then it diffuses through the air spaces, out through the stomata and out into the atmosphere. Now you might be thinking, why on earth is that important? Which we'll get to in a minute. But firstly, we're going to look at the transpiration stream. Now the transpiration stream goes right from the roots of a plant up to the leaves. So if you're thinking of a big giant redwood tree which can grow up to about 50 or 60 meters, the transpiration stream in a plant could be extremely long. Likewise, if you were comparing that to a little piece of watercress, it could be extremely short. But in both plants, it's really, really important. The plant can't survive if they don't have a transpiration stream which is working and transporting water and minerals through the plant. So this shows the start of the transpiration stream. Basically, we have soil particles out here, which is one of these. We have water molecules, and what has to happen is they have to enter the cell by osmosis, and they enter this root hair cell, which we learned about before, and we said that it was adapted because it had a large surface area. The water then moves across the root again by osmosis, and it enters the xylem vessel, which is there to transport water. It then transports the water upwards through the plant. It continues the whole way up through the stem of the plant, up into the branches, and then out into the leaves, and this shows the water molecules moving. So these little water molecules are leaving the xylem to the mesophyll cells, then they're diffusing through the air spaces and travelling out through the stomata. So this shows the transpiration stream then, going whole way from the roots up the stem to the leaves, and then evaporating out through the leaves. This animation just shows the transpiration stream then. So it shows how the waters move from the soil up into the roots, and then they move up through the stem, and then they move through the leaves, and then out the underside through the stomata. Now, in each section, through the roots, the stem, and the leaves, the water is travelling through the xylem. So why is the transpiration stream actually important? What does it do? Well, firstly, it supplies water to the leaves for photosynthesis. So you'll remember that the equation for photosynthesis was carbon dioxide plus water, which gives you glucose plus oxygen. So this transpiration stream provides the water needed for that. It also transports minerals in water through the xylem. So it's not just water moving. The water that enters the root will also contain minerals, which the different cells in the plants are going to need to grow. The water will also pass through the plant and it will enter cells and provide support. So if water enters the cells by osmosis, the cells become turgid and collectively they provide support to the plant. And finally then, as the water moves through the plant, it provides water for the process of transpiration itself, which helps cool the plant. Now, out of all these three are the most important ones. It supplies water for photosynthesis, transports minerals, and supports the plant. Now, this next section is a little bit about stomata, where we find them. So, remember, you find stomata on the lower surface, and they're found in the epidermis. You will find the stomata surrounded by two guard cells, and the pore in the middle is called the stoma. So here's when you find them. The stomata will be open whenever the leaf has enough water, and then the stomata will open and gases can move into the leaf so they can be used for respiration and photosynthesis. If the leaf has lost a lot of water, the guard cells will shrivel up and the stomata will close to prevent any further water loss. This just explains that in a bit more detail. So how do the stomata open and close? When the stomata are open, the guard cells take in water by osmosis from neighbouring epidermal cells, and as a result the guard cells swell up and bend, causing a gap to develop between them. And when the stomata are closed, the guard cells lose water and become flaccid, and the stoma closes over. And this just shows that actually happening. So the stomata open when the guard cells take in water, and the stomata close whenever the guard cells lose water.